Tonight, shutdown day 34. Airport delays on the rise. Food bank lines growing. The latest in negotiations between Republicans and Democrats as SNAP benefits dry up and federal workers face another week without pay.
The fact that my food budget is gone is seriously disheartening.
Plus, Nigerian crisis. The warning from President Trump as violent clashes from terrorist organizations plague parts of the West African nation. And
so if you believe in that better story of America, do not sit this one out.
Off-year elections take center stage as the biggest names in politics make the final push to get out the vote. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. It's the final countdown to Election Day, a major test for both parties and President Trump's second term. Good evening in Washington, I'm Jenna Browder. Tomorrow is Election Day, and candidates in key races are delivering their closing arguments as millions of Americans prepare to hit the polls. Several races are drawing national attention. In New York City, former Governor Andrew Cuomo is running as an independent against Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani in a mayoral race that's grabbed headlines coast to coast. And next door in New Jersey, the governor's race is tight with Republican Jack Ciattarelli gaining ground on Democrat Mickey Sherrill. Meanwhile, Virginia is gearing up to pick its first female governor. Democrat Abigail Spanberger is facing off against Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears. The contest is seen as a barometer for President Trump's second term. And in California, voters will weigh in on Proposition 50, a redistricting measure that could give Democrats a better chance to control the U.S. House next year. Tomorrow's results could send an early signal about the political mood of the country and what's ahead in next year's midterms. For more on this, let's bring in our political panel, CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody and Nathan Gonzalez, Editor and Publisher of Inside Elections and a Faith Nation contributor. Gentlemen, welcome. So David, Axios is reporting that President Trump's political operation is spending more than $1 million in both Virginia and New Jersey to target those Trump voters who usually sit out off-year elections. How much, David, is tomorrow about President Trump and his second term so far?
Well, if you line up the Democrat officials, they're going to say it's all about Trump. As a matter of fact, they've been campaigning against Trump, whether it be in Virginia and other places, especially Virginia. So, look, call me an outlier. Maybe I'm not an outlier, but the way I see it, I've never really understood. Nathan, maybe you can help me out on this. I've never understood exactly why off-year elections in Virginia and New Jersey typically are the ones that all of a sudden the media loves to say, well, let's take a look at the tea leaves tonight. And all of a sudden Trump's in trouble. The Republicans are in trouble. The midterms are in trouble. That's my anchor voice, by the way, though I am, I guess, somewhat of an anchor. But Nathan, I don't get it. So Nathan, maybe you can explain to me why exactly Virginia is this bellwether state and all of this type of thing as it relates to the anti-Trump narrative in the media. Trump's not on the ballot. I get it. They've got to get the pro-Trump supporters that normally support Trump but don't support the Republic. I get all that. But I don't think it brings us to these sweeping conclusions. I just think we read too much into it, honestly.
Yeah. Nathan, I want you to weigh in. Democrat Abigail Spanberger, she does have a 9-point lead over Republican Winsome Earl Sears, according to the Real Clear Politics average of polls. And yet at the same time, we saw former President Obama campaigning in Norfolk this weekend. So if you might, how tight is this race, and how do you see this race in Virginia? Like so many people are talking about, it's a bellwether and it's a referendum on President Trump.
I think the reason why these get so much attention is that we're a year from the 2024 elections. And so everyone's wondering, well, have things changed since, in this case, Republicans, their big wins back then, and we're a year ahead of the midterm elections, wondering, well, what's going to happen a year from now, even though there's that distance. And I think it's important to watch the margins, right? Democrats are favored in each of these races, but let's look at the margins and compare them to 2024. Vice President Kamala Harris finished ahead of President Trump by almost 6 points in Virginia. So a win of 9 points or more would be big for Spanberger. I think that would show that either the Democratic base is more mobilized or independent voters have started to change their minds from 2024, or Republicans have a coalition problem that they need to work harder to get that Trump coalition to turn out when he is not on the ballot. And so David, we can't forget that there are a lot of political reporters that live in the DC, Virginia area. And so that adds to these getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, and Jenna, can I just say something real quick? Because I totally agree with what Nathan is saying. And just to kind of go granular a little bit, look at Stafford County in Virginia. I mean, that's one of the counties we're going to be looking at, right? To see how Stafford goes and whether or not Spanberger can increase kind of a vote total that she's done okay there. It's been tight, but can she do even better in places like that, which is one of those exurbs out of or really more like an ex-exurb, if you will, out of the Washington, D.C. area. So, it's that type of thing that Nathan makes a good point that we'll be looking at on Tuesday night.
Yeah. David, do you think Spanberger could carry the Democratic Attorney General candidate, Jay Jones? He's, of course, the guy who had the texting scandal where he wished death on a Republican colleague and his family.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because the answer is yeah, I think she could. I mean, someone needs to explain. Boy, I need a lot of explaining today on the show. Nathan, you got to explain this one to me too. No, the point is, Jay Jones is up a couple points now in the polls. I say now. I mean, he's still holding on, maybe for dear life, but he still is holding on. And it's just remarkable to me that someone like that, whether you're running for attorney general, governor, etc., can still survive this. I mean, it's pretty remarkable, but it looks like he very well could. And if he doesn't, by the way, it'll be very unique to have potentially a Democrat governor, Abigail Spanberger, and a Republican attorney general. We'll see if that happens.
Yeah. Let's talk about the New Jersey race, the governor's race there, guys. Another possible bellwether for the 2026 midterm elections. Democrat Mickey Sherrill and Republican Jack Ciattarelli appear to be in a very close race. Ciattarelli picking up some steam here at the end. Nathan, your thoughts on this New Jersey gubernatorial race?
I think this race is going to be closer than Virginia. It's hard to believe that actually in the presidential race, New Jersey was closer than Virginia. So there's that context as well. But what a challenge for Congresswoman Sherrill is that she is running as a Democrat coming off of 2 terms of a Democratic governor. And so for those voters who don't like what's going on in New Jersey, the direction of the economy or the direction of New Jersey, they have a Democratic governor currently in office to hold responsible, and maybe holding the Democratic Party more responsible compared to Virginia, where there's currently a Republican governor and a Republican president. So we're watching that. Ciattarelli, he's run. This is his 3rd time. He lost by 3 points 4 years ago. We'll see whether he's able to close that and even overcome. But Sherrill comes into this with at least a slight advantage.
Yeah. Okay, we have to talk about the New York City mayoral race. By all appearances, it looks like Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani will win. President Trump, he was asked about this race this weekend on CBS's 60 Minutes. We have some sound. Let's go ahead and play that, and then we'll get your reaction.
Zohran Mamdani, 34-year-old Democratic Socialist. He's the front
communist, not socialist, communist. He's far worse than a socialist.
Some people have compared him to a left-wing version of you, charismatic, breaking the old rules. What do you think about that?
Well, I think I'm a much better-looking person than him.
So President Trump getting a little cheeky there. President Trump, he also said it would be hard to give money to New York City if Mamdani is elected. David, your thoughts on Trump's comments and this race overall?
Mamdani's going to win. Is the bottom line. There's no other way about it. And New York is going to get what I say they deserve. And what I mean by that is that they want this. They want this. The part of the problem, or the good news for Mamdani, is he's running against COVID Cuomo. I mean, the guy has just been disastrous as a Democrat recently. I mean, he had to leave with all of the scandal, not just with COVID, but a few other extracurricular activities. And so you put it all together and, it's just been a perfect storm for Mamdani. I think to me what's going to be interesting going forward is to see how much AOC will either benefit or not benefit from this. She has been tied to Mamdani, if you will, ideologically. And look, the bottom line is if Mamdani does well, that's good for AOC's political future. If he bombs in New York, that is going to be a major problem for AOC going forward in the Senate or potentially even further.
Yeah. Nathan, you want to weigh in on that?
I think we got a window into President Trump's thinking when he was talking about the funding for New York City, saying it would be hard to give money. Now, this is money that is appropriated by Congress, for projects or other spending. This is not President Trump's sort of pot of money just to be doling out to whom whatever states he thinks is appropriate or not. But I think we got a window in that he believes that it is. And so this adds to the pattern that we're seeing of the president either punishing Democratic cities or Democratic states because he thinks that they oppose them, and by using money and the purse strings to leverage that influence.
Well, I'll be watching tomorrow, the big day, Election Day 2025. David and Nathan, thank you so much. Good to see you both.
Thanks, Jenna.
And coming up, as the shutdown drags on in Washington, President Trump issues a new warning over Christian persecution in Nigeria. Welcome back. The government shutdown is on the verge of being the longest in history, and its impact is starting to be felt far beyond Washington, from tens of millions losing food assistance to travelers facing growing airport delays. The stakes keep rising as Congress remains deadlocked after 34 days. To break down this and other major headlines, let's bring in senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright and national security correspondent Caitlin Burke. Both of you, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Kelly, the president is once again pushing Republicans to use the so-called nuclear option and bypass the 60 votes needed to end the stalemate. Kelly, help us to understand the president's thinking here and what could be next from the administration.
Yeah, Jonah, good evening to you, first of all. So the president's thinking here is to get the Republicans to have the majority vote, 51. And if they can knock that out through the nuclear option, knock out that 60 vote threshold within the filibuster, then the Republicans could vote a straight way of getting people back to work, getting the government back to work, and continue on with the continuing resolution. So that's the president's goal here. But Senate Majority Leader John Thune announced today that he doesn't see that likely. They don't have enough votes to actually use that nuclear parliamentary procedure. Plus, a lot of Republicans and Democrats are really shy of using that because it is drastic. It can do a lot of harm to the Senate as well as the House.
Yeah, and depending on who's in control, the tables could definitely turn if Republicans are not in control.
It's a bad precedent to start.
Yeah.
And getting back to the government shutdown, the president is doing all that he can, according to him, to get things done, especially to help people with the SNAP program and the WIC program. There is some money available. They are using some of those contingency funds now, but it is not enough if this government shutdown is prolonged and continues to go on. So that is a problem, and the president is putting all the blame on Democrats.
Kelly, the president also making news over the weekend, issuing a warning to Nigerian leaders over the murders of Christians at the hands of terrorist groups, saying the U.S. could get involved. Kelly, this is something you've been following for a while now. Explain what's happening and why President Trump feels compelled to act and the response from Nigeria.
Well, let's start with recent. The president announced this because he's quite concerned about what's been unfolding in Nigeria with regard to persecution of Christians and a Christian genocide that's been widely reported and actually underreported, if you will. It's just coming into the spotlight now, and we've been talking about it at CBN for several months, if not years. And I recall reporting on this story years ago during the president's first term in office. And even then, there was a problem going on. And so what's happening here is that the president wants to actually possibly impose sanctions or even military intervention to stop this threat against Christians. And I should also point out that Congressman Chris Smith, who has put this matter forward as well as Senator Ted Cruz, they've been pushing for these kinds of sanctions and intervention. Congressman Chris Smith also points out that moderate Muslims are being held captive and actually killed, as well as Christians. So it's a problem with the radical Islamic State that wants to create a caliphate throughout all of Nigeria, with their target to occupy all of Nigeria and expressly create a caliphate. And that's something the president has to step in on. And so we're watching to see how that develops. Nigeria, for its part, saying, we don't really need that. We applaud your intervention if it will help everybody. And Congressman Smith basically says that Nigeria has been complicit with some of the attacks that have taken place against Christians as well as moderate Muslims. And so now the president is making a move to actually try to stop that and intervene. Yeah,
Caitlin, Kelly mentioned military action. The president told reporters he could envision this being a situation where we see U.S. troops on the ground in Nigeria. What more can you tell us about that, and how is the Pentagon preparing this evening?
Jenna, I asked the Pentagon about this, and they referred me to a post on X by Secretary Hegseth. He said the Department of War is preparing for action. He said that if the Nigerian government will not protect Christians, the U.S. will go in and kill the terrorists responsible for those attacks, and they had no further comment on how exactly they're preparing for that possibility.
Yeah, Caitlin, there are new reports tonight that the U.S. military also may be expanding its drug enforcement operations, this time targeting cartels in Mexico. What can you tell us about that and the latest on the administration's ongoing boat strikes in the Caribbean?
Well, Mexico would be kind of a new front in the administration's campaign against drug cartels. We know that they had initially been focusing on Venezuela and Colombia, the strikes on drug boats. There is talk about going into Mexico, having American boots on the ground, as well as intelligence officials. That has not been green light. It is not an official action that is being taken at this point. However, if it were to happen, it would likely look like drone strikes on drug labs against specific members of the Mexican cartel. But for now, those strikes on alleged drug boats are ongoing. There have been 15 up to this point that we know about. The most recent was Saturday. Initially, those focused on the Caribbean. Now they've expanded to the Pacific, where the Trump administration says there are known cocaine drug routes.
Yeah. You know, Kelly, the administration's gotten some pushback on these attacks. What are they saying tonight? Anything new on that front from President Trump and his team at the White House?
The administration right now is remaining focused on what it has to do, in its opinion, about dealing with these drug cartels. And to my colleague Caitlin's point, the military intervention is something that the president deems necessary, which is why these attacks have been taking place on these targeted attacks, I should say, or strikes, I should say, against these drug cartels. And keep in mind, the drug cartels have issued in some cities and throughout America, particularly Chicago, they've actually upped the ante by putting as much as $50,000 reward money for anyone who kills an official within the government that's dealing with ICE. So this is a problem. The Mexican drug cartels and other cartels are feeling emboldened, and the president is making a strong stance against them.
Okay. CBN News senior White House correspondent Kelly Wright and national security correspondent Caitlin Burke, thank you both. And up next, more deceased hostages returned to Israel. And cleanup begins in Jamaica after Hurricane Melissa. That's next on Faith Nation. The bodies of 3 more deceased hostages are back in Israel tonight, released by Hamas as part of the ceasefire deal. They include American-Israeli tank commander Captain Omer Nutra, Staff Sergeant Oz Daniel, a member of his tank crew, and Colonel Asaf Hamani, who served as the commander of the Southern Brigade Gaza Division. The return comes after Hamas delivered 3 bodies on Friday that turned out not to be hostages. 8 bodies still remaining in Gaza, including 1 American. In Gaza, the IDF is working to eliminate pockets of Hamas territories in areas under Israeli control. President Trump told CBS's 60 Minutes the Gaza ceasefire is, quote, very strong.
I mean, you hear about Hamas, but Hamas could be taken out immediately if they don't behave. They know that. If they don't behave, they're going to be taken out immediately. If I want them to disarm, I'll get them to disarm very quickly. They'll be eliminated. They know that.
Meanwhile, in Lebanon, Israel continues to strike Hezbollah targets, killing 5 terrorists over the weekend. Meanwhile, Jamaica, victims of Hurricane Melissa are coping with severe shortages, and survivors are desperate for the basic necessities. CBN's Operation Blessing is in Montego Bay, working to bring food and water to the community.
Hurricane Melissa passed through Jamaica and completely devastated what these people knew before. Hospitals, schools, supermarkets, roads, as you can see, they're flooded, roofs are gone. People are right now desperate. They don't know where they're gonna find food, they don't know where they're gonna find water. The children are hopeless and the parents are very much like so.
And we have been through many hurricanes, including Gilbert, which was a Category 4. We didn't have anything like this.
But this hurricane was really devastating. A lot of water, flood. Everyone is under flood right now. Nothing is good inside the houses. Everything is gone. Every single thing is gone.
We cannot get any food. Mega Mart right over there, they confiscate everything because they were flooded as well, and the food is contaminated. So the health inspector came in and said to confiscate everything.
Yeah, you can see behind me, they're cleaning the community, they're working to restore their normalcy, and Operation Blessing is willing and lovingly able to help them. Operation Blessing knew about this need and quickly mobilized our international team, and we've already set up a kitchen where we're providing hot meals to the survivors. We are here helping them get back on their feet with a warm meal, with clean water, with medicine. We're just ready to love on them. We've prayed already over the food with them, with the community, and yeah, they're just so thankful for us to be here. We were distributing a truckload of water bottles. People heard that we were coming with water, and they just came from all over. They dropped whatever they were doing, the cleaning stuff. They were trying to get mud out of their homes. They just dropped everything to come and get water. And we heard two things. We heard we need help, and thank you for being here.
We are grateful to everybody who are helping now and who is about to help, and wherever the help is coming from, we are very grateful. We are very thankful.
And still ahead, a unique therapy animal lifting the spirits of retirees. Next on Faith Nation. All right, finally tonight, a unique group of therapy animals is bringing joy to the Big Apple. Most people, of course, have heard of therapy dogs. Oftentimes, golden retrievers take on the role of visiting retirement homes and sick children because of their gentle and friendly nature. But a special riding center in New York identified a couple of horses they think are up for the job. 17-year-old Pearl and 15-year-old Aiden are from Horseability, a therapeutic riding center on Long Island. The pair of miniature horses travels the East Coast, brightening up children's hospitals and rehab facilities and nursing homes.
Oh, I love them. We want to take them home, right? Gives all of us old people a little hope, you know, a little pleasure.
And staffers at the retirement home say Pearl and Aiden are really making a difference. That's great to see. They're beautiful animals. All right, that's going to do it for Faith Nation tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night, and we will see you here tomorrow on Election Day.